If you struggle with productivity, or you have ADHD, or you think you have ADHD and you run your own online business, today's video is for you. Hey, I'm Christina Scalera, the founder behind the D-commerce movement and the Contract Shop, which is an online D-commerce store, of course, where I am putting my money where my mouth is and actually living and breathing everything that I teach about on a daily basis. Having a D-commerce store has been amazing, especially in light of learning a couple years ago that I had something called ADHD. I don't even know what the letters stand for. I just know that I am late to everything, that I will forget that I was supposed to do something and spend 7 hours organizing a closet in hyper-focus mode without realizing that 7 hours have gone by. I frequently don't eat lunch. I just work right through lunch, but don't even notice. And then all of a sudden I have a migraine and I'm like, why do I have a migraine? Oh, because the only thing I've eaten today is coffee, and that's not food. Actually, the coffee thing is how I got diagnosed. So I came into my therapist's office. So I found my therapist because a couple years ago, the Contract Shop was having its best month ever. We hit around $142,000 in revenue in 1 month. I had never made that much in a single month, much less a weekend. And in the matter of 3 or 4 days, and we had made that much. It was insanity. So it was a couple of different things that all coalesced around this event that helped to bring in that much revenue. It was a quick think product that we put out around the time that the GDPR compliance stuff was really hot. That was a big topic in the legal industry. We came out with a really simple, palatable, accessible course for people to get their hands and their heads wrapped around this crazy thing that was happening. And I was featured on a really big podcast that month too. So basically all of these things happened and we hit this amazing revenue number, which was out of the park. I never imagined that we would hit that. Since then, I don't think we've hit that number in a single month, but we've definitely had several six-figure months since then. But what's important is that when we hit that almost $150,000 month, this was 2018, and I had so much fear and imposter syndrome. And I know that's really weird for anybody who is neurotypical, who doesn't experience anxiety and depression and other problems, right? So if you are neurotypical, it's gonna sound really weird, but I went into what I thought was a deep depression after this amazing month that we had. We continued to keep that momentum up and make a bunch of money. And that's every business owner's dream, right? Is to make money, and the more easily you make it, the better. And that's what was happening to us. And it was not a dream at the time. I was very much upset by it. And not that I would have changed it. I like the money, but I just was so afraid that everybody was going to ask for a refund, that people weren't going to like us, that people were going to put us on blast, that they were going to try to cancel my shop, that I mean, any kind of worst doomsday scenario that I could have had, I did have. And more than that, it was an incredible sense of overwhelm, which meant that I couldn't even open my inbox. I had to hire someone to go through my inbox because I couldn't even bring myself to do that. And I could read their message every day that said, here's the things that you need to respond to, and then I could probably go into it. So just the fact that I felt like I couldn't get out of bed, I was really overwhelmed. I didn't know where to start anymore with my workday. I just felt like a failure and a fraud, that I would never be able to have this kind of success or this kind of month, this revenue again. I was really, really hard on myself. And a lot of these things that were happening forced me to get a therapist. And I'd had therapists before. That wasn't a weird or a new thing to me or anything, but this one felt different. I was even looking at ketamine therapy because it's a treatment for depression and it can get you back into action pretty quickly, apparently. If you don't know ketamine therapy, it's not the party drug or anything. It's legitimate science, and you have to go to a doctor and it's monitored and all that. So just get that out of your head. But I found a therapist and I started going to her and I said, I think I have depression. Everything feels really hard. It feels really overwhelming. I can't get out of bed in the morning. I don't want to work. I feel really anxious. I'm just having all of these problems. I have no idea where to start. even when my team gives me like an exact list of things I need to do that day. So she worked with me for about 3 months, and about 3 months into working together, I came in, like I always did, back before the pandemic, and you could see your therapist in person. And I came in with this big thermos cup of coffee. That was what I always had with me. I'd sip it throughout the session, I'd be done with it, and then I would move on with my day. My sessions, I should also mention, were at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So she asked me what's in the thermos, and I said, it's coffee. And she asked how much coffee. And I was like, well, I don't know. I guess it's like, I don't know, like a liter. I don't know. And she's like, and how many of those have you had today already? And I was like, usually I've had at least 1, maybe 2 before this one. And she's like, oh, okay. It wasn't that I was addicted to caffeine. I definitely have like headaches and stuff, but I don't notice when I haven't drank coffee or something now. But at the time, I literally couldn't function without 2 or 3 liters of coffee a day. And we're not talking about like K-cups or like little tiny things. No, it was like legit percolator coffee, like I didn't even know this isn't how you're supposed to do a percolator, but like I would go through like a bag of coffee every, I don't know, 3 days, because I was like filling the percolator up to the top with each one of them. So anyway, lots of coffee, lots of anxiety, lots of what I thought was depression. But what she also identified with me, at least, was that I had a lot of forward-thinking thoughts, which meant I was planning for excursions and the winter and shopping, and basically I just didn't have I didn't have any symptoms actually of depression, other than the fact that I felt like I couldn't get out of bed, and she felt like that was more of an ADHD thing. And she didn't say as much, but she sent me as a referral to a psychiatrist who did an evaluation, and sure enough found that I have ADHD. So then I was like, what? Because how can you be, I was 31 years old at the time. I was 31. How could you be 31 years old, get through college, law school, all of these things, and nobody's noticed that you have ADHD? And like looking back, all the signs were there, and it was super obvious. I mean, I would do things to disrupt class. I would do things that were just like the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard or seen. It was a combination of the depressive tendencies, I would say, because again, not depression. I definitely have anxiety, so like that was there a little bit. I also found out I have OCD. So I have a bad habit of like absolutely destroying my thumb, and I just tried to get it on camera and I couldn't. But like literally my thumb yesterday was just bleeding because I picked my cuticle so bad. So I definitely have a lot of like little OCD things. It's not like you have to touch a wall 15 times or whatever. Like that could be it, but like for a lot of people, it's like picking disorders, and I have lots of obsessive thoughts when it comes to my relationship with my boyfriend. So there's a lot of things that I've experienced, and like now that I know what they are, I can recognize when they're happening and what I'm doing. But before, I just thought I was a crazy person and, you know, was stressed out, and that's why I was like picking, or that's why I was having these crazy thoughts or whatever. So I guess the moral of the story is really that if you find that you have something strange happening in your life, which is the hardest thing for you to identify as you, because your experience is all that you know. You don't know anybody else's experience. But if something feels off to you, I would highly encourage you to go see a reputable therapist about it, if not even a psychiatrist about it. But typically, like, therapists can kind of point you in the right direction to go see the psychiatrist. Because what a therapist is able to do is work behaviorally and through talk therapy on some of the things that you're experiencing to help alleviate some of the symptoms. But what a psychiatrist can do that a therapist can't is prescribe you medication and diagnose you with any kind of disordered thinking or like anything that's going on. They can administer tests, either, you know, medical tests, or like I had to take an actual writing test for the ADHD. One thing I didn't know either was that most women are diagnosed in their late 20s or early 30s with ADHD, because it's kind of the age where you can't you can't coast along anymore. So when I look back at the behaviors that I had that were helping and supporting me, it was things like setting my clocks ahead, but not looking when I set them ahead. So I had all my clocks fast, and I had no idea how fast they were. They could have been 10 minutes, 15 minutes fast, whatever, just so that I could get out the door on time and get to places. It was also things like scheduling events right, like one on top of the other. And because with my ADHD, at least, I have no concept of time, which is why I can like hyper focus, and I don't even know it, but I've been sitting there for 17 hours working on a webinar. True story, that happened once. I can get really easily distracted. It's not that I get distracted like here and there, like, oh my God, I'm so ADD. Like, that's not how it is for me. It's more like, oh, there's a stack of books. Let me organize them by color, even though I already have tons of stuff on my plate that I need to do that's productive and helpful. So it's a little bit of like procrastination, but it's like this overwhelming desire where you can't stop. Like a normal person would be able to say like, okay, I've been going at this for like 45 minutes. I really need to get on with my day. I'm going to move on. Someone with, at least for me and my experience with ADHD, that's not something that happens. You look up and it's 4 hours later and you have no idea that that just happened. The last thing I would say about my ADHD and like these like co-morbidities, like my skin picking and my OCD thoughts and things like that, is that these are things that are different for everyone. So I remember reading somewhere there's like 7 different types of ADHD. Like there's the kind of the one that you see on TV all the time where someone's hyper and bouncing off the walls and that thing. But then there's also, and this is why it goes undiagnosed in women, there's also ADHD where like you are like me and you have no control of your schedule. You don't even understand that like your brain is processing things super fast. So I always thought I just was like kind of awkward and would like spit out things that made sense to me, but then like in social context, they didn't make sense. So for example, if you were talking about how to tie a tie, that might remind me of something else, that reminds me of something else, that reminds me of something else and else and else and else and else. And that all happens super quick. And I'm all of a sudden saying some random fact about giraffes. Like that's the kind of stuff that happens. I decided to get on medication. A lot of people decide not to. A lot of people decide to be on medication and then change. But what medication has done for me is it just makes things so quiet. It's like I just don't have all of those like, and that reminds me of this and this and this and this and this and this. And this. So that it's not that I'm getting distracted by every little thing, but like I could just be sitting there and in my head, I've just had 20 different thoughts and they're all like connected and they end in this like other place that I'm supposed to be in talking to you. So anyway, that's been my experience with ADHD. I definitely have found that I'm more productive with my medication. It was really funny. My boyfriend and I went to meet I'd never met his parents. So we went to meet his parents and we stayed with them for a week. And I hadn't been on my medication for like months because it was the pandemic. I just didn't care, whatever, who cares? Probably should have been. And I got my medication filled because the prescription renewed and I brought it with me. And because I was in this like routine that his family had instead of just like me living on my own, I found that I took my medication every morning and every day my boyfriend was asking me like, are you okay? You're really quiet. What's going on? Are you sure you're okay? Like, are you uncomfortable? And I had to be like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have been kind of quiet. And then I was like, oh yeah, I'm medicated this week. And he was like, oh, we both had that like moment of understanding where it was just like, oh, and that's the thing is like, I just don't blab all of the time when I am medicated. I'm not like, so my cousin has ADHD and she's loud. Like she's super loud. She has like where I have no time control, she has no volume control at all. And luckily I don't think I have that. No one's told me that yet. I haven't noticed that in my life yet. I've been really like self-conscious about it. But at the same time, I definitely am such a talker when I am unmedicated. And then when I get tired, or if I've exercised, or if I've taken my medication, or if I've like consumed 3 liters of coffee, literally, I calm down. The last thing that's been kind of interesting about ADHD is that I can take my medication, which is technically an amphetamine, and it's Adderall, or I can drink like all that coffee that I was talking about, and like other than having to pee, I could fall asleep just fine. Like I've drank all that coffee, or I've taken my medication and I've been able to go and take a nap. So I don't know what to say other than that. Like, I think it's a grossly over discussed mental disorder and grossly undiagnosed, because there's only really less than 2% of the population who has ADHD. And so maybe it's like getting diagnosed more or too much or something. But I think it might be getting diagnosed incorrectly or not getting diagnosed, I should say, in like the populations who actually have it, because it doesn't always show up as like a nervous little boy who can't sit in a seat, which is kind of the stereotype. It can show up as like someone who's really quiet and my mind is going a million miles a minute and I'm thinking of all this stuff and I just wanted to shut up and I can't make it. If you do think you have ADHD, or you think that you might have ADHD, or you know you have ADHD, I know that having an online business can be one of the greatest gifts that you can do for yourself and for your life, because every single time I've worked in a corporate environment, whether it was a law firm or in a legal department at a corporation, I always found myself either getting my work done like really, really fast and people were like, this is supposed to take you longer, or not getting it done, procrastinating, getting in trouble for not doing it, or most likely daydreaming the whole time I'm doing work and like only being able to work 5 minutes at a time here and there. True work. So being an entrepreneur is really the best thing that a lot of us with ADHD could do. I don't want to say everyone, because it's not, but the way that you're able to work, especially as someone who has a different day every single day, it's a little more controlled with the medication. And if I can have a good routine, and I hired a personal trainer to make sure that I work out so that I get some of that energy out. But if you are able to structure a day in a way that benefits you, which isn't always like a 9-to-5 structure, it can really help you manage some of your symptoms and some of the things that you're experiencing. And it can also help because you can work really hard in that hyper-focus mode when that happens, or you can work just when you're feeling better. So like there's some days when I still feel overwhelmed, I don't want to work, and I don't have to. And that would not be something that I could enjoy in a typical job that is like a normal like office job. So I just want to encourage those of you out there that if you do have ADHD, or if you are having productivity challenges, I think the best thing you can do is to get help. And that's more of a long-term thing, but like literally if you're watching this video right now here today, go do 10 jumping jacks and see if that doesn't change something about your life in this next 10 minutes, because just getting up and moving and exposing yourself to physical stimuli can really help to shift whatever mind state you're in. So if you don't want to get out of bed and everything feels overwhelming, like get out of bed, do a bunch of jumping jacks. If you're like me, turn the heat like way up when you get out of bed so you're not tempted to crawl back into the covers. And just going through some of those things and changing the pattern, interrupting that pattern, can really help to regain, it can help you to regain some of that productivity that you might be lacking right now. And it can also help you to shift your mental state so that you can put yourself in a situation that encourages you to be more productive and efficient and getting more things done, especially when you don't feel like it. Remember, you are your own boss. There's nothing wrong with creating a business that works for you. It doesn't have to look like anybody else's. In fact, it shouldn't. And that's what's going to deliver the results that you're looking for, whether it's more money or more time back in your life, more freedom to choose what to do at that time. Those are all opportunities that are yours for the taking. And if you want to learn more about running a freedom-based business through a e-commerce store, make sure that you're following me, that you're subscribed to the channel, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye, everyone.